wena N'wakhazamula ntombi ya ka Mgwena a nga wena Professor Olga Nkondo kan'we ni vamakwenu Alex, Nana, Titus na Elizabeth Makhuvele eka n'wina Mavondlo ni marhole ya Muxe Nkondo, wena Zava, Kenyezi Ntsako, Muxe Junior na wena Nkateko eka matiku ni switiku hinkwaswo swa ka Nhlungwana kusuka le swikundlwini swa Maledza na Zinjiva ku ya fika le tiveni ra Mahebe, eka n'wina timhunti ta Mona, n'wina va ka Makhuvele, n'we va kokwa wa kona. Hi ta mi losa hi ku yini? Hi ta angula hi ku yini? Timbilu ta hina ti ninginisiwile hi swidzedze ni madzedze loko n'wana wa hina Mbonya a ta va a etlele vurhongo lebyikulu. Mpfhuka xa siku ra 11 ra n'hweti ya Sunguti eka lembe ra Nyan'waka. As soon as a human being comes to life, it is old enough to die. So said existential philosopher Martin Heidegger. No truer words have ever been spoken. And yet, we often cajole ourselves and one another into believing that only the old are more eligible for and more amenable to death than the young. But death itself does not seem to agree with us. It takes whom it will, when it wills, where it wills, lending credence to Heidegger's astute observation that as soon as a human being is born, that human being is immediately old enough to die. Yes, we will and we must bemoan and begrudge death for its capricious viciousness and utter cruelty. This side of the grave, nothing is more heartless, nothing is more brutal than death. Some may consider Maya Angelou a tad uncouth, but I consider her honest and truthful when she chose to answer the Apostle Paul's biblical words irreverently. She said, and I quote, "I answered the heroic question, 'Death, where is thy sting?' I answer it with, 'The sting is in my heart and mind and memories.'" End of quote. There is no denying it. Today, death does sting our hearts and our lips like a bee. And so we do ask ourselves why an intelligent, handsome, talented, well-traveled young man who was barely 35 years old, like Mbonya, why he had to go. Indeed, Prof. Olga Nkondo and many older family members may be tempted to ask God the question which W.E.B. Du Bois asked God when he lost his own son to a sudden death, and he said, "If one must have gone, why not I? Why may I not rest me from this restlessness? Was not the world's time in his young hands, and not my time waning? Are there so many workers in the vineyard that the fair promise of this young man could lightly be tossed away?" End of quote. Mbonya had long passed the stage and the phase of merely being a promising academic and an emerging entrepreneur. Having worked successfully with his intellectually demanding father, as a research assistant. And I say intellectually demanding because I know how intellectually demanding he was. And having worked as a teacher and mentor in tough and competitive terrains in Thailand and China, Mbonya had more than proven his ability to execute complex tasks. He had more than proven his tenacity in unfamiliar territory. He had more than proven his resilience in the face of adversity, his appetite for exploration, and his tremendous hunger for success. He had proven himself in all these realms and more. Nor was Mbonya a one-dimensional and pedantic nerd who could be contained and detained in a couch inside the four walls of the built environment. Mbonya was out there. He was a sportsman, adept at swimming, excellent in athletics, brilliant in rugby, outstanding in soccer, gifted in basketball, good in chess, and he was also a naturally born photographer. He was a well-rounded young man with an appetite for life in fullness. Perhaps he tried in one lifetime to excel in and participate in as many endeavors as possible. As we heard, he was born in Boston, USA, and brought over to his native country when he was 11 months old. November 1991, when he arrived, was the month when CODESA negotiations commenced. And Mbonya, who was then a toddler crawling around, walking and falling, never stopped striving for freedom ever since. Maybe this child of South African democracy wanted to achieve and to impact as much as he could in his short 34 years on earth. And didn't we see him try to do just that? As soon as a human being comes to life, it is old enough to die, said Heidegger. This statement is more about life than it is about death. The unspoken message was that all of us, regardless of age, may not postpone living purposefully and impactfully because we really don't know how long we have. And yet, if truth be told, the question of whether Mbonya at 34, turning 35, was old enough to die sits like a stone in our guts. What we know for sure is that Mbonya was old enough to have left an indelible mark in the innermost corridors of our hearts. What we do know for sure is that Mbonya was a phenomenal young man. His family, siblings, peers, students, and all of us are privileged that our lives overlapped and intersected with his ever so briefly. Inaka, igula swona hiri, muka kwatsi nhlungwane, muka kwatsi wena xikokotse dzovoro oma, n'wina van'wa masungula hi ku fuma va vuya hi ku landza, n'wina va hlamba xilevu ematihlweni ku hlamba vanyati homu, ngirimela ka rikwenu leswikundlwini swa malebya na zinjiva, bana magoza u ya hi rungulela eka tata wa wena ni vamakwavo wakwe, gonya ntshava ya muvenje u tlhela u yi godima, pela mati lawa yo rhomba ya nambu wa mahebe, u pelela le nhlalukweni leri nga le hase, ku kondza u ya tlhasa laha vadzambala va nga yima kona va ku hi ku ya hi tinyimba ta vona. Etlela bya n'wantenyani zondwayo, wena Mbonya wa Muxe wa Nkenyezi wa Mbonya Matluka wa Xihenya wa Ntobzayila hi ri mzambala ndzi wena, wena nhlungwa vukosi hi vandzila, sika vutomi hi malwandla u etlela vurhongo u ku teteni.
Arrivo